Welcome back to Unplugged with Nicki Marie. We are on episode 11. 11 is a lucky number. The double digits are a godly number. I'm feeling off kilter today, back from NYC, blah, blah, feeling crazy. But I've got a special guest here. Her name is Dr. Daryl Appleton, and she is a success, style, and self-care advocate. She's called the Success Doctor. We met here. I'm just going to talk. I'm not great with the intros, so we're just going to start talking. She's a twin mom. She's got a podcast called Feelings and Other F Words. Mm-hmm. And we met here in the studio accidentally. So she was a guest on Ian Brownhill's So New England podcast. Ian's laughing at me. He's like, you are a hot mess today. But we met here and we asked each other to be on the podcast. And now you're using the studio. And I'm using the studio, and we started following each other on Instagram, and I saw some of your posts, and I just want to go right into, you talked about overachiever parenting. Mm-hmm. Ding, ding. You talked about high-performing parent burnout. Ta-ting. Perfectionism, fault-finding. Ta-ting. So all the things that you're talking about, are we living the same world?
I think so at this point.
Okay, so you're a doctor. This isn't like everybody's a coach now. I honor all the coaches out there. I really do. But we got a doc in the house. So doctor's orders, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. What are you dealing with today with moms?
I mean, my specialty is in high performers and high burnout positions. And I think that moms, stay-at-home moms, working moms, transitioning moms fit that bill. They do. They fit that bill because we are in a time, an era, a place, a space where we can't do it all. But we try.
We try.
So hard.
Yes.
And it doesn't always work. And I find that moms now put so much pressure on themselves. And we talk about this a lot on Instagram and on social, but it's true. It's so true. Clinically, it's true. We see it impacting their life, their relationships, their work, their relationships with themselves. So moms, we gotta get it together.
Right. So, and this is the thing, like I'm so want all the answers from you on motherhood, right? Because that is the hardest area of my life. And then I think of my audience and I'm like, there are so many women following me who aren't moms. Maybe they don't plan to become moms, but they identify with my content from that high performing, overthinking, brain never stops. I could have 1,000 things go right and then the one that goes wrong and I'm like crushing on myself. So talk about like perfectionism, success driven brains. Like what is it?
There's a difference between good and great, right? A lot of my research is in what's the difference between good and great. And it really is details, but details will like crush us because I think I posted it. Somebody said to me, perfectionism is not doing things perfect. It's finding fault easily. And you know, when you're just like to somebody like,
yeah,
how dare you? And I was like, I never thought I was a perfectionist because I knew it didn't exist. But here I am like, yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm finding a fault in all this stuff. And not because I'm nitpicking, but because I know I can do better, or I know this could be better. I know I can elevate this somehow, but there has to be a counterpoint. Like, I don't believe in balance. I don't believe in work-life balance. It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Knock it off.
That's why we like each other. It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. But there needs to be like a counterpoint somewhere. There needs to be a place where you're like, okay, all right.
So I love that. And I identify it so deeply and so selfishly where I'm like, isn't there so much good in that personality trait? Because I would not be where I am in any area of my life without having that.
Yeah.
So where's like, because I a lot of my audience is like, you're so hard on yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I take that seriously. Like I like being hard on myself because if I wasn't hard on myself, what would I be doing? So talk to me about that as if I'm your, right? You're coaching me.
A billable hour. Okay,
yeah,
here we go. I think that there's something to be said about, yes, it's amazing to be able to be self-aware, to want to do better. But at what point does it become counterproductive? That's the place that you got to find and put like a pin in, being like, ooh, it's no longer serving me. And that's the thing that like I try to get people to identify and walk back from, being like, okay, I can do this much. Because after that, no return on investment.
Okay.
Bad.
So
no good.
So do you have a lot of former athletes?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I have a lot of current athletes too that I work with. So the athlete thing, and I played basketball in college. I mean, I connect very well to people who are like, we're doing it. I'm in. Let's go.
Yes.
But also at the same time, if you work out every day, your muscles atrophy. Ian and I were just talking about this. Like at some point, like you need a rest day, and what you do in your rest day matters, but you need to have that in order to like maintain some sort of homeostasis.
Yeah. Yes. So you're working with people who are high performers that want the balance of all the things, right? You take the pie chart and you've got family life and romance and right vacations and self-care. How do you help people think through that? Is there like a visual you can give us?
Again, I don't believe in that balance because I think that's a very big visual people have of like work, play, momming or parenting, romantic time, date night. Like, good luck. Good luck doing all of that equally and balanced and fair. And you're setting yourself up for failure. I like to use the acronym SWAY. I am big into alignment, and SWAY is seeking what aligns you.
Oh,
yes, I made that up, by the way.
I love that. I needed that. Talk more.
So there's something about this alignment that it's almost like when you go to the chiropractor, like you got to put things into, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this feels right. And when you can feel it, you get more into a flow state, which we see in athletics of like everything's going right. Every shot, every decision. Ooh, I knew it. I felt it. We talked about this like visceral feeling before. And getting into alignment helps for flow state to happen a little bit easier, a little bit more effectively, efficiently. That's really what I try to help people do. Find their alignment.
Okay, and how?
Well, we need to see what's not aligned first.
But what do you say, if you could say there's one common denominator of what is out of alignment for people right now?
Expectations. Yeah. Expectations and behaviors.
So give me an example.
So I think I work with Brown University in the general surgery department in-house as their wellness consultant. And a lot of times I think there's this push to do things excellent and best, and we need to. But now we're having all this intergenerational chatter of, is this a job? Is this a career? And now we are forced to step back and say, okay, like what are we doing and how are we doing it? And does it work or does it not work? So we need to look at expectations of what makes a great surgeon, not just a good one. And then we need to look at the behaviors of what is causing burnout with how we interact with each other, how I interact with myself, how I push through hard things or don't. And that type of stuff is where I can then pinpoint of like, okay, here are 3 things you can go do today to help you with that.
Wow. All right. So when we're talking about success driven, because there are going to be a lot of people that listen to this and think, I am that way. And other people that are like, I wish I had more of that. And I do hear from a lot of both, right? I hear in my DMs is kind of where I feel like the real world exists based on what's going on in my DMs. And I don't respond to all of them, but I try to every day. I spend so much time in there. But it's constantly how did you get out of the rut of divorce, of loss of job, of all like the hardship times, right? How did you get through that? And I think it comes full circle to like the success-driven mentality. So the people that have it, I think they've got the grit of like one foot in front of the other, belief in themselves, belief that they can get through it, right? The North Star mentality. But the people who can't, is that out of your forte? Like,
no, get realigned. Look at everything on your plate. Quite literally, I'm big on pen to paper, like literally write things down and see what it is you're trying to focus on. I am huge on defining what success means. And I make people look at it through an individual lens. I make people look at it through a family lens. Like, what does it mean to be a successful parent or a successful relationship? Then on the professional side, what does it mean to be a successful professional? What about for today? What does it mean to be successful for today, right now? And what about in a lifetime? I came to you on your deathbed. I'm like, were you successful? What does that look like? And then I make people literally circle the words that show up in each lens. Like if you're seeing like trust or happiness or peace come up, That's a value. And that's then what we need to work on getting for you to be aligned.
Okay, can we play with something?
Yeah.
All right, so give me like a Dr. Daryl moment. And we could play with something
Okay.
that I want to. I'm very out of a line.
Okay. So
Very out of a line.
what does success mean for you as an individual? What words come up?
Like legacy.
Okay. What does legacy mean?
It means I like left my mark on my kids. Like,
Okay.
I want to say on the world, my kids,
Okay.
where there's this nostalgia and memory and something that my kids want to keep passing down to theirs. Like it's very hero, older generation. I'm like an old woman. So it's like my grandmother's recipes and the sound of the mixer.
Okay.
I always think of her, and I just want to leave some of that stillness in some of those moments with my kids.
And I
It's
love
like
that.
the biggest thing for me.
And I think when you say legacy, I hear that of like literally traditions, like your history, like there's something there. But there's also like a safety piece. I want you to feel safe in this moment with me. So that when you move on to future moments, you have this to recall.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What about a success as a parent? What does that mean?
My kids feel in adulthood the way that I feel. So I think online we're seeing a lot of people who want to change the cycle breakers, right? And trauma breakers and moving on. And I want to bring as much of my childhood into my kids' lives as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean they build their confidence. They know they could do it. They can face hard times and have a blast in life.
All right. So tangible skills that they can utilize to be in charge of their world. Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, and when
And
we
have fun. Have fun.
yes, and being able to not take life as seriously because life is fun, or it should be.
Mhm.
But when you think about success in those dimensions, does it change then the action steps of like when you have so much on your plate, is it maybe a little bit easier to triage? And we did too, right?
Yeah, it does. And I think what you're probably helping people like me with is the overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
We overthink. I think that comes with the perfectionism and the success-driven stuff, right? Is like, got to get all the things right at all times. But when we just did that, it made me realize I'm already doing a great job with a lot of it. But also, how do you get rid of the noise of like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible hair mom. My daughter loves hair. I can't do her hair. I'm hard on myself for that. I'm like, I wish I knew how to do hair. That's a little one. Homework mom. Oh my gosh, my daughter didn't do well on that test that I helped her study for. Like, I got to step it up. Oh my God, my kids had too much screen time. I got to step it up. So how do we tame some of that noise? Is it back to the list?
I think it's again that like you can do anything, but you cannot do everything, and you cannot do it all at once. The other side of this is I love a to-don't list. I love a to-don't list. Love it.
You just talked about that on one of your posts, the holiday.
I did. Yeah, I was just on Dr. Phil this morning talking about the to-don't list.
Were you on Dr. Phil this morning?
It was Marriage Street Media, so I didn't get to see the man. Also, sidebar tangent, I wanted to be him for Halloween one year.
Oh
I like
God,
as a
do
child
it.
of the 80s, 90s, I love.
I can see you with the bald cap
I mean,
thing.
I would
do
make
it.
a great Dr. Phil. Anyway, sidebar. Call me Phil.
Yes.
But we were talking about this idea of to don't, because so often to do feels so overwhelming. Our brains are actually designed to avoid hard things, like avoid pain. It's a thing. So lean into that. What don't you want to do, or what is not necessary to do today or this holiday season, or what's yours not to do that you have taken on because someone else has put it on your list?
This podcast. I have no right. Okay, here's the thing. All I wanted to do was to get back to where I needed to be, right? Like, and the second I got back there, I couldn't just sit and observe and sit back by my pool. I had this vision every spring. I'm like, I'm going to sit by the pool more this summer with a magazine in hand. I'm going to go to the beach like 50 times and not give a flying fuck what else is going on. And then the summer's done. And I'm like, I started a podcast because that was too much fucking time to sit still. Right. But is that part of what you see? It's like just always the next.
And that's not
goal.
a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, because I don't think a person like you would be like totally at ease at the pool. Maybe for a minute or two.
The beach, no. No, it's gone.
Maybe for a minute or two. But I think it's like there's also people I see that want to keep moving forward. There's something about that progress that pushes them. And even what you were saying before, like legacy. There's so many layers to that. Legacy to me is an action word. There's this like connection to the past, but it also pushes us forward into the future, and it's onward and infinite. So like that's also a value system of yours that's super important for you to know and lean into, because it's going to recharge you. For some other people, it might not.
Right. And it's going to calm me though, because even thinking of the visual of what it means is so opposite sometimes the energy that I'm putting in to the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're like, the legacy isn't focused, and you're like, the house is a mess. My kids want shower, teeth brush. Like, you're a mom of twins. Like,
and I think that's the hardest part is like in a vacuum, I'd be in charge of everything. I would run the world. I would do a great job. But my kids, the little things like, oh my God, this random credit card statement that I need to like call them, like, what's this charge? Like it just gets in the way. And now all of a sudden we have decision-making fatigue.
Okay.
Like,
oh, yep. I'm sit back. I might lay down. You said you wanted to do your podcast with people laying down. I might pass out for the decision fatigue.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And a great way to rest when you have decision-making fatigue is to literally pass on decisions to somebody else. Like the what's for dinner conversation has caused, when I used to do couples therapy, has caused more fights, more divorces, because it's not about what's for dinner. It's about you are handing me another thing to figure out, and I do not have the bandwidth, and I cannot, and you can't recognize that, and that's what's hurting me.
I will speak as a divorced woman. The fact that we are talking about mental load and invisible labor is such a gift to women and to men. If men want to hear it, it's such a gift, because it really is. Every woman that I talk to who's gotten divorced, it's a real thing. It's like we just get to the point where we are toast. And when a woman's toast, it's like really hard to come back from.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I love that you said when you were a couples therapist, and now I'm fixated on it, because I love me some couples therapy. So fun fact, I went to school. I wanted to be a couples therapist.
You'd be a very good one.
I mean, I got divorced. I don't know.
Even better. We need people who've
Really?
been in the trenches. We need people. What doesn't work?
So go to that. Go to the couple side of you. Oh, high performer, married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's like competition that happens a lot of times. If a high performer marries a high performer.
I was married. It was
yeah, no, it's a real thing. And usually early on in the relationship, there's like a support and like you do your thing, I'll do my thing, but it's siloed, right? And then enter a house and a mortgage and chores and kids and their schedules and a dog and a this. Now all of a sudden each person is like, but I'm high performing. Like I have to focus on my thing. And the other person's like, but you're asking me to give up focus on my thing. Well, how is that fair? And that's where the thing becomes a capital T thing.
What's the capital T? Because all I could think of was now it's the C-U-N-T.
Which could be. But it becomes like now we don't see eye to eye. Now I feel disrespected. Like these, again, value words, like the triggers in our values, which is hard to come back from. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel understood. That is what every single human being wants at the end of the day that I have found.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Those three things need to be fulfilled in some capacity.
And when two wonderful people are both feeling that same way, it's really hard to make a comeback on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking from my own experience as well as so many conversations I've had in this arena.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that high-performing people have a harder time in marriage?
100%. 100%.
This conversation, I didn't know was going to happen like this, and I'm loving it.
That's why we have no notes. That's why we do this.
But no notes, please.
Yeah, there's a lot of the surgeons I work with, they have one of the highest divorce rates because they are so fixated on their job, which is life or death, and they're good at it, and they've worked so hard to be good at it. So I think as women, we're having babies later, we're getting married later, we're having more time, and men, to focus on ourselves and our careers. And then all of a sudden, the kids come or the house comes or the other responsibilities come. And it's like, well, you're the woman. Like, obviously you're going to be the primary parent. And you're like, am I? Do we? Like, what are we sharing? Like, I got into a fight with my husband the other day. He's a lovely man.
Yeah.
He doesn't know our children's pediatrician's name. And I was like, do you see how ridiculous that is?
Yeah.
If I were dead, who would you call?
Right. But it's in our kind of DNA and it's in our society. And I don't want to like throw daggers at the men.
No.
But it's also, I was falling apart as a mother who was working a corporate career. But here's the part that I take accountability for. And I'm wondering how many women especially feel this way is we have put expectations on ourselves that we're supposed to be able to handle all of this motherhood stuff. Why would I not be able to bathe both of my kids, get them both changed, feed them both, clean up the dinner, clean up the snacks, get the bags packed for the next day, get them to bed on time? How would I be complaining about not getting help with that? So take a woman like me who's like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And eventually you feel alone, right? Because you're doing it. And now he sees that as the default, like, oh, she's got it.
Right.
Because I just did it.
Right.
And then is that where you're saying the decision fatigue and the mental load and this weight?
Death by 1,000 paper cuts sometimes. It's like swimming with just your nose above water, waiting for the next wave to come sometimes. And people don't see it, right? It's not a physical thing that we can be like, oh, you broke your leg. Like, you might need help up the stairs. Let me carry the bags.
Yes.
It is very invisible. And I think that it's so heavy. And there's actually research that high performing women, I don't know about men, I'll look into it. But the women, it does not translate to being a mother. So our high performing as a career person does not translate into our ability to be moms. Not because we can't, but just because they're not transferable. Mm-hmm. Like the rewards we get from being parents are completely different than like showing up in the corporate newsletter or that check in our bank account. Yeah. There's totally different standards for ourselves, like literally, actually, and then you add in society and it's a whole host of stuff.
Yes. That's wild. So if someone were listening to this and they're like, I feel like I'm on the verge of being really unhappy, because that's a lot of my DMs. Is I don't know what to do. I'm on this like fork in the road. If they forwarded this episode to their, let's just say it's a woman and she's like, I'm on the last verge in my marriage and she wanted to forward this episode to her, let's say it's husband. What would you say to him?
Take time to hear your person out. Listen to what they're saying and do not just be silent so you can then talk. Hear her and help you understand what she needs and ask things like, what can I do to help right this second? Or how are you actually? Or you know what? Here's the plan that I have made. Because the former is kind of like, I don't know, you're asking me to solve this for you. But I do think that there's something about consistency as well. Not just like after the glow of couples therapy, right?
She flipped out and now you're like doing it for 2 weeks and then it's okay.
You have to be consistent in that. And you guys might need to look at it like a business meeting. Who does what? How do they do it? Where do we need to step in? Is this out of scope? Do we need to hire somebody if we're privileged like that? But like figuring that out is a step forward because you're doing it together.
Yeah.
And that's really super duper important.
Really, really listen and do. Mm-hmm. Listen and do.
And go to couples therapy. I think every couple should be in couples therapy, even when things are good.
I absolutely agree. I think you should have to be in it before, during, and after.
Always.
Still in the grave, you're in the freaking couples therapy. And then what do you think, because I'm going to ask this from a selfish standpoint, is how can I help my kids as a parent to do brave things? Because they're success driven. I have 2 kids who are success driven in 2 totally different ways. One is like risk assessment. He's got a future in risk assessment. He's like, right? Overthinker, smart as a whip, little perfectionism. And then I got my daughter who already thinks she's good at everything. There's no hard work need to put in because she's already got it all figured out.
Love it.
But like, is there a toolkit for parents who like, you want to raise kids that know they can get through hard things and they could try new things and it's okay to sometimes fail?
Yeah.
So I just asked like a 5-layer question, but
No, and you answered a lot of it. I think your rhetoric matters. Like saying like, we can do hard things. I'm a very big fan of tough, not toxic. I'm a very big fan of like, we can do difficult things and we should do difficult things together. I am here every step of the way. You go try it. If you need me, I'm here. Go for it. So our rhetoric very much matters. Seeing your kids, seeing you do it very much matters. Like that's Bandura effect. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yep.
We see tons of studies where kids will watch you.
Yeah.
Like my 3-year-old twins, like they do stuff that I do. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know I do that. They're watching you at every age. We still watch our parents.
We do.
Like I watch my mom, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me do that this time. So what you do also very much matters. And I do think with your kids, and this is my opinion, I guess it's an educated one, but I do think that we should also teach them how to be self-aware and say things to them like, okay, let's watch film, right? Like, let's go back. Like, what went wrong? What would you have liked to do different or better?
I love that. I'm going to use that tonight with Chase.
You know,
From
like,
his anxiety about not going to school today.
yeah, what's one thing that you think would have made it a little bit better? Like those types of probing questions, they're not judgmental, they're not forced. It's, all right, let's review. What next time?
Yes.
And now it's teaching them to think about what instead of why. Feelings are real. Feelings are valid. They're important. Why doesn't always get us to an answer as much as what. What next? What happened? Who do we need to talk to? What do we need to ask them? That to me, I think is another great piece for the toolkit.
I love that. And my last question, if you could give any tangible advice to the overthinker, the perfection, right? The highly success-driven person right now, what would it be? What's the best tangible, coachable thing right now they could do?
Oh, that's a big question. I think at the end of the day, I would say, is there a return on investment for this behavior, thought, action? Because if you're already success-driven, I want people to lean into that, not out. You're not gonna like it. It's not gonna feel right. But instead, think of it as a return on investment. Does this way of thinking actually help me because I need to figure it out? Yeah. Does this way of thinking, or behavior, is this causing me any pain or stress that I could otherwise avoid? Like asking yourself that's kind of what I do with myself of like, oh, what's the ROI? Yeah. And it helps me immediately focus down into like, yes, no, this works, this doesn't. And then I can streamline my approach and go on with my day and my life.
Do you feel like with that, like a lot of people know what they want, they just feel guilty to do it? And I'll just give you a simple example. The other day I was like, wow, it was before Halloween. And I was like, wow, we only watched Hocus Pocus once. Like usually we like what? And there was one morning where I just put Hocus Pocus on and I sat down with my coffee and it was like so filling of my soul to just, it sounds simple, but it was like just to do that thing that my spirit needed.
Yeah.
Was sit down and be like, in the movie, actually watching it without this multitasking, feeling like I got to always be doing something. Yeah. Is it sometimes that simple where you like?
Could be. Have to and want are two totally different parts of the brain. Have to is survival. Want is stabilizing. It's thriving. And it's great to be able to do things that we want to do and knowing the difference, right? Like being very clear. I'm very big on defining things. What do you want? What do you need? What do you need to do right now? Like being very clear about these things helps you be clear. Like my job is not to do anything other than take that tangled mess of Christmas lights and untangle it for you.
I like that because
That's
I can
my
see
job.
it. I'm like, yeah, get the Christmas lights. And it's also what they say to do when you're manifesting. It's like, you got to be very clear. And that's one thing I don't think I've ever given myself credit for is I have manifested almost everything in my life because I'm very clear on what I want.
Interesting.
And when I'm not, you know what I say to myself? Maybe this is a tip for other people. When I am not clear, I'm okay with letting it figure its way out. So that's probably my tip is if you want something specific, you've got to say it out loud. You've got to put it out there to the universe out loud.
Yeah.
Get them crystals charged under the moon and say it out loud. And if you don't know, just let it simmer.
Yeah, you can't force a manifestation. That's like the opposite.
But I think a lot of people are like, feel forced to come up with something.
And I think that adds that extra layer of pressure. Again, I have to.
Yep.
like, oh, I have to watch Hocus Pocus because it's the holiday is very different than like, ooh, I have a free moment. You know what I want to do?
Was craving it.
That.
It was a craving.
And you fulfilled that craving.
Okay. Oh, we're down to, what was that? Oh, okay. I thought it was a.
Yeah, you had hand signals before and I didn't know what they were. All right. Okay.
We're so perverted in this room all day. Sorry, Abby. It's me. It's not Ian. It's just me. I met a woman. Do I say the No, I'm not going to do that. There was a woman in the elevator. This is how, so like for real, that was great. Wait, before I say where can we find you, I just want to tell a quick story. I went outside to use the restroom. Did you know that they have a key now that we have to use?
Yeah, there's only it's depends on what time you're here.
Well, the guy next door from the law office, he said someone was trying to like live in there.
Oh, really?
Or something was going on. They had to get key. So now it's locked. So I had to.
The men's bathroom has a tissue toilet paper stuffed in the lock, so it can't lock at all now.
All right. Well, listen, we're just living the dream here at the Turks building.
We took the key home by mistake, so I think that's why they were like, once we get this open, let's just perch it open permanently.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, anyway, so I went to use the restroom, and as I'm coming back, there's a woman who has got a shout out, Stacy. Stacy's mom has got it going on. So she's got donuts. She's got a pizza. And she goes, hi, I met you before when you were filming with Ian that day. You're the only duet I ever did on TikTok. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I go, what are you doing for food tonight? She goes, I'm feeding the grandkids, 17 grandkids. But here's the good part. She goes, you know what? The best therapy is one, dead serious. She said, this is a grandma of 17. The best therapy is one orgasm a day keeps the doctor away. And I was like, what just happened? And then she goes, my handles flick the bean something. And then I walked in here and now here we are.
Here we are.
But that was my...
I don't know it's one of those, when we've talked about before, it's just like the universe finding you.
Stacy, then my response was, I go, my name was, after she tells me the flick to bean, I go, my name was almost Stacy. But my mom's friend named her kid Stacy first. And she's like, oh, amazing. And the elevator closes. And that's it.
End scene.
That's my life story. This happens. The universe sent me Stacy with the flick of the bean. Anyway, Dr. Daryl, I loved having you. I could talk about this all day. Where can we find more of you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Daryl Appleton. I'm trying to figure out TikTok. I'm working on it.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, with all your free time, Doc.
I'm trying to figure it out. And at www.drdarylappleton.com. That's DARYL. Lots of different spellings. Get it all the time.
And your podcast.
And my podcast, Feelings and Other F Words.
And I was just on it, and we could listen to both back to back.
Whole night in.
You're not going to get the flick the bean story on there, but you got it here. You heard it here first. Stacy with the flick the bean grandma of 17.
Shout out.
Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Mwah. Thank you.
Thank you.